Well, in summation, I want to say that there's a few things that I did leave off. The pop-up showed up on my screen there. I wasn't fading out on it. It was warning me that there's no audio, but apparently the audio is working fine. I did leave off some things in those earlier conversations after reviewing them that are worth mentioning now. One of their biggest tricks is to make the symptoms of their attacks appear as insanity. I've also heard other TIs talk about this. In other words, they'll, if we were to complain about what's going on to the officials, we'd look like we were crazy. Their attacks are deliberately set up that way to make sure that we can't complain, or if we do, we can be easily ignored. It's clever. It's a clever way of getting away with serious crimes. The voices themselves, some key points I want to point out to other TIs is that they are able to mimic voices of friends and family. So I heard my mother and other people that I knew screaming in my head and in my ears. I'm a victim of workplace mobbing, which keeps you in constant stress because you never can hold down a job. People will deliberately, I'm in sales, people will deliberately not buy my product to make my sales numbers low, so I'll lose jobs. I've been through a lot of jobs, which adds to the stress, of course. I've experienced some very bizarre things that are worth mentioning too. On 2 or 3 occasions, I remember feeling sensation. This is early on, back in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, and 2006. I experienced different sensations on 3 separate occasions. It felt like they'd actually put a CD in my head and were actually playing a CD. I remember one time just before I was committed, they'd lied at that time. The doctors had lied about my blood tests and said that they found drugs in my system, methamphetamine specifically. I hadn't done any methamphetamine in years, to hold me there. And at that time they played a CD, not a CD in my head, but it was like they plugged something into my head, and it was a sensation of like elevators, mechanical elevators moving in and through my brain and stuff. They are able to put images into my brain. Now, whether I've been hypnotized to think that, or whether they told me this, and then the people around me are talking about what they actually said, and I'm just thinking it's my thoughts, and they're just, they play a psychological operations with you, and there's no way to actually determine whether they're actually reading my mind or not. I don't know. Sometimes I think for sure they are, and other times I don't know. They've actually backed off on the voice to skull on me, gratefully, over the last few years. I think mainly because I've built up different types of defenses to it, which I've gone over with you earlier. But I did have a sensation as though that they could play with my mind at all times. I heard other TIs talk about feeling like their brain was like on a computer screen and they could actually see the images, and I definitely, that for the first few years, that was a big one with them, that they were reading my mind and they actually could see what I was thinking, and a million different things that they were doing, and lie detector and all kinds of crazy stuff. It was just insanity. Just not so much, it was just a constant barrage of information that they were assaulting me with while I was trying to live my life. They were just barraging me with all this information. They came up with a million excuses, a million different reasons why they were doing it, and just anything that they could do to intimidate, humiliate, harass, threaten's a big one. The fear of constant death was always there. They would threaten to kill me on many occasions, which is a crime. All this is a crime. I remember having images of, I remember pigeons talking to me. I don't know if that was hypnotism or some kind of a brain screw, but I remember pigeons talking to me. I remember the sky ripping open one time and what they claimed to be Christ's face. They're smiling and waving at me. I've seen flying saucers, or one flying saucer, near Nellis Air Force Base. They told me I had to look out the window. I looked out the window and lo and behold, there's a flying saucer. I believe that some of these may have been hypnotism. I've seen time stop on my way to work. I had no car, so I was walking to my car got repoed long time ago. I was walking down to work, and time had stopped. I was still moving, but the planes were frozen in air, and it was like way worse than the acid trip because it was very mechanical, and it wasn't like a drug-induced hallucination. It was very sinister. I was hypnotized to believe I was in hell, where there was a red hue with everything around. Or I don't know if there's some kind of a mental trick, whether it was a machine or hypnotism. I don't know. It may have been a combination of both. They were hitting me with both to make it as bad as possible. I've been in different planes of existence, different consciousnesses. I've literally been thrust into what I call the deterministic plane, where you start getting into the future and past and just some really bizarre shit. And just all this stuff just to make life impossible to live. It's very hard to just hold down a job when your people at a workplace mobbing you and trying to pick fights. They're trying to pick fights. They would make me those jobs by coming in and picking fights and saying that I started it. And of course, I'm in the job, and I would lose the job. And so they would come in and pick fights. And the whole time the fight's going on, I'm not able to defend myself because I have this barrage of information. So while these people are talking to me, I can barely hear. So it's very hard to defend yourself as a TI. I've left off a lot of stuff, but these are some of their main tactics that they pulled on me. Remember, my story goes from 2002 up into the present, and it still continues today. Not as severe as it was, but it's just different. You know, now it seems like their big focus is to get me some kind of a criminal. You know, they want more charges on me. They've got some really bogus charge going on right now. Just, you know, I mean, just ridiculous stuff. I don't know. They're going to have to railroad me on this one to get this one to go. And it appears like that's what they're going to do. They sure are trying to. It's just a pain just to get any information out of the courts at all. And they're just playing games. They're like 2-year-olds. We spend all this money in taxes, and we spend half our lives trying to correct the mistakes of our government. We pay these people to do their job, and all they're doing is fucking us. Sorry. That's just the way it is. And, you know, it's just awful. They have no conscience. I'm sure I'll think of some other things to add to this. I wanted to get those main points on there because these are things I thought of. In the meantime, thanks for listening.